Chioma had not answered her mother's call in 3 months. Not out of anger. She simply no longer had space in her life for the woman whose hands had once held her through every storm. Tonight, surrounded by friends who celebrated her success, she told herself this was freedom. She was 24, sharp-tongued, and beautiful in the way that made brands want her face on their campaigns. She was always dressed like the arts she created. Her friends, Zainab, Tunde, Gloria, were her chosen family now. They understood ambition. They didn't guilt her about missing Sunday lunch at her parents' humble home. They didn't ask why she ignored her younger brother, Chuka's call. They simply raised their glasses and celebrated the woman she had become. Her mother, Nkiru, called again during a client meeting. Chioma felt the phone buzz against her thigh and didn't even glance at it. What could her mother possibly want that was more urgent than this? Her father, a retired teacher, had long stopped asking when she would visit. Chuka, her brother, had learned to accept birthday wishes via text when they come at all. But the body does not care about ambition. Later that night, alone in her chic apartment, pain seized her. A dull ache became a vice, became fire. She stumbled to the bathroom and collapsed on the cold tiles. Vision dreaming, phone just out of reach. When she finally crawled to it, her fingers, cold, trembling, barely responding, fumbled against the smooth glass of her phone. The screen lit up, too bright, hurting her eyes. Zainab's name. She pressed call. 1 ring, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The person you are calling is not available. Please leave a message after the tone. The automated voice felt like a door slamming shut. Tunde, nothing. Gloria, silence. And then she remembered the concert. The show they had begged her to attend. She had told them she felt unwell, a little under the weather, nothing serious. They had laughed, calling her dramatic. They told her she was missing out on the night of the year. Every time work, you always have one deadline to beat, or a project to deliver, or meeting to attend. How about Chioma? Leave a little now. She would smile, wave them off, promise to join next time. Now, her friends were dancing while she drowned on her living room floor. She tried again. Zainab, voicemail. Tunde, voicemail. Gloria, voicemail. The phone slipped from her grip, clattering against the tie. The sound was final, absolute. Pain consumed her, not just the fire in her abdomen, but something deeper. A cold, creepy realization that she had built her life on people who could not find her in the dark. She had chosen them, created them, invested in them, and they were at a concert. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. The missed calls, the ignored texts, the weekends she would let pass without a single phone call home. Nkiru had never been to a concert in her life. But if Chioma called her right now, bleeding on this cold floor, would she answer? Would she come? The thought shattered something inside her because she already knew the answer. Of course, her mother would come. Her mother would walk through fire. She would leave everything and she would come. But Chioma could not call her. Not after all she had done to her mother in the past 3 months. Not after choosing everyone else over her. Every single time. The shame was a second kind of poison. Her breath came in ragged gasps now. The ceiling above her swam in and out of focus. She thought of her father and wondered if she would ever see him again. She thought of Chuka, 12 years old, learning to stop waiting for his sister's call. What have I done? The tears came. She sobbed desperately as her body shook like she was being electrocuted. She cried for the pain. She cried for the loneliness. She cried for the years she had traded for this moment. Alone on a cold floor, reaching for people who could not hear her. And then she heard something. Footsteps. Someone was opening her door. A voice, elderly and concerned, asking if someone was all right. Mrs. Adeyemi, the old woman next door, the one Chioma had passed 100 times without a word, the one whose name she barely knew. Chioma tried to call out, but her voice was gone. Only a whisper escaped, but it was enough as Mrs. Adeyemi yelled, and she did not hesitate. The hospital swallowed her in sterile white light. The bed was cold beneath her, the sheets rough and impersonal. A doctor appeared, and when he spoke, each word landed like a stone dropped into still water. The doctor pulled a plastic chair close to her bed. He sat, meeting her eyes with the kind of gravity that needed no translation. "Madam," he said, his voice low and steady, "you have ruptured appendix. You need to undergo a surgical operation immediately. We need someone to sign consent forms." The words hung in the air. Simple, impossible. She looked at her phone. Zainab, Tunde, Gloria, their names glowed on the screen, bright and useless. They were at a concert, dancing, celebrating, living, and she was alone. The realization was colder than the sterile room, sharper than the pain tearing through her. She had spent years building a life full of people, and in the moment she truly needed one, there was none. Her thumb hovered over her mother's name. 3 months of silence, 3 months of ignored calls, 3 months of choosing everyone else over the woman who had chosen her first. The shame was a second surgery, cutting just as deep. "Who should we call?" the nurse asked gently. Chioma's mind raced through her contacts. Every name felt hollow. Every friend was unreachable. Her chosen family had chosen the concert. With the humility of the broken, she whispered the number she had ignored for months. Her mother answered on the second ring. "Chioma!" The word was soaked in immediate concern. Not anger, not accusation, just a mother who had been waiting. Chioma could only sob. 6 hours later, her mother walked into that hospital with red dust still on her shoes from the journey. Beside her, Chioma's father carried a container of jollof rice. Young Chuka came along, looking really excited about seeing his sister again after months. They hadn't asked questions, hadn't demanded explanations for 3 months of silence. They simply came. Her father placed the food gently on the bedside table. Her mother sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair and took her daughter's hand. When Chioma woke up from surgery hours later, her mother was still there, asleep in that same chair, hand wrapped around hers, head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Her father sat reading quietly in the corner. These people had a lot of things to do, but they dropped everything. They had traveled across the city without hesitation, without judgment, without keeping score of how long she had ignored them. Her phone buzzed on the bedside table. A group text lit up the screen. "Zainab, Tunde, Gloria. Babe, so sorry we missed your call. Hope you're okay. We are at that concert we told you about. It was insane. Will you be available for bro this Saturday?" Chioma stared at the casual words, the easy apology, the assumption that brunch could fix everything. Then she looked back at her mother, still sleeping and still holding on. The bright light of her city life suddenly seemed dim. The loudest voice in her world, the one that celebrated her in rooftop bars and tagged her in photos, we are not the ones who had found her on that bathroom floor. We are not the ones sitting in an uncomfortable hospital chair. We are not the ones who actually answered on the second ring. What would they have done if you were alone in the dark? Who would come? Her mother stared, eyes opening slowly. When she saw Chioma awake, she smiled, tired, relieved, full of a love that had never wavered, despite the months of silence. "Mommy," Chioma whispered, the word feeling both foreign and like coming home. "I'm here, my daughter," Nkiru said simply. "I'm here." In that moment, Chioma understood what her mother had been trying to teach her all along. She had been so busy building a life that looked perfect from the outside that she had forgotten where her foundation was. She had confused the people who applauded her shine with the people who would carry her through the dark. A single tear traced down Chioma's cheek, not out of pain, but of gratitude, of recognition, of finally understanding. The moral her mother had never had to speak aloud. The lesson written in every answered call and every journal taken without complaints finally reached her heart. Your real family is not the people who celebrate you when you are shining. It's the one who show up when your light goes out.